Morning. Welcome to Joy. I'm glad that you are with us this morning. Hope that you all had a great Christmas with your family, friends, whatever it was that you were doing, and enjoyed the time and had some time to rest. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for you all. The past few weeks, we have talked about peace a couple weeks ago. We talked about hope last week. And this week, we're going to talk about joy. We talked about this, in relation to our decorations at Christmas have these words a lot of times. I know Christmas was last week, and we're technically past it, but joy seems like a good one to do after Christmas too, because after Christmas, that's our time to rejoice, right? That's what we're rejoicing in in Jesus coming, and then we can have joy. And there's a lot of joy this week as gathering with family and friends and some time off work. That always helps being joyful. And then, of course, this week with New Year's, right? That's often a time of celebration and fun and a time of joy, right? This whole week is in this kind of week between Christmas and New Year's. For a lot of people, sometimes they might have the whole week off. You took it off. Your work gives it to you off. It's just a time of joy, isn't it? There's a lot going on. And so this week we want to look at joy, what we can learn about joy. Joy is a very important part of your Christian life. It is one of the things that should make you stand out, that should signal to those around you that there is something about you that maybe is different than other people. It's that joy of the Lord that is inside you that should be shining out. Then when people see you and they see you going through difficult times and they see that that you're struggling, it's that joy that should be standing out and should be shining through you to the other people that are around you. And that they see that joy going on, even though you're in difficulties. And that should be a sign to other people of God in your life. Now, they may not always know exactly what it is. They may not know that that's God. That's your job to tell them about it. Okay, that's where you come in. But that joy is a very important part of our Christian life. And it should be shining through us to the people that are all around us, the people at work, our family, our neighbors, friends who don't know the Lord, all those people, even the other people around us who do know the Lord, our people around you at church here. That joy should be evident to the people that are around you at all times. So joy is an important part of our life, and that we want to look at that today and see this joy, what this joy looks like. Lord, we come to you, we just thankful, rejoice, as we were just talking about this time of year. Rejoice in your Son coming, rejoice in the opportunities to celebrate with family and friends and see those who maybe don't get to see often. Rejoice in times to relax and refresh. Just as we look at joy today, that you would be speaking to each one of us, the Holy Spirit be moving in our hearts. Show us what you have for us this morning. Praise things in your name. Amen. So this morning we're going to look at the joy of the Lord. Emily was up here and she read some of the verses from John 15. And in those verses at the end, Jesus said that his joy could be in us and that joy might be full. And that last verse that she read, it said that his joy can be in us and that our joy can be full because of the things that he had said preceding it. Now, we didn't read through all of them, but we're going to look at that. We're going to look at some of these things that Jesus told us because he said, you can be joyful because of these things I was just teaching you. So let's stop and look at what he was just teaching us and go back. So we're going to read a few verses from John 15 if you want to follow along with us. Because Jesus says, I'm telling you these things, I'm teaching you these things so that you can be joyful, so that your joy can be full. You can have joy in your life. So if you want to have joy in your life, I think most of us probably do want to be joyful. It's better to go around and being happy and enjoying life than going around dragging and dreading life, isn't it? So I think all of us are looking for joy. We're trying to find joy in our life. And Jesus here in John 15 says, this is how you get joy. He's telling us how to get joy in our life. And we struggle sometimes trying to find that joy. And I know because life beats us down, doesn't it? Work is hard, it's stressful. You're trying to pay your bills, and sometimes unexpected things pop up. You get sick, your car dies, There's all kinds of things going on. Family member gets sick and it's stressful, and now you're having to do extra work to help take care of them or something. And there's a lot of things in life that tear us down and is pulling us down, aren't there? And so sometimes it's a struggle to find joy. And so Jesus here in John 15, he's telling you, if you need joy, this is what you do. I'm going to tell you these things so that you can find joy. And not just that you can find it, that it can be full, and it can be abundant, and it can be overflowing in your life. Let's look at what Jesus says in John 15. We're going to start in verse 1, and we're going to read through verse 11. Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, and it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit. So shall ye be my disciples. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love. Even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Okay, so you might read that passage, and at first glance, is probably looking at it and like, okay, well, how does that help us find joy? I don't understand the connection. But we have to look at the last verse, verse 11. What does Jesus say? These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and your joy might be full. So Jesus is saying, I'm telling you these things so you can have joy. So we have to stop and look at it and try to figure that out, what he means. Because as we said before, you might look at it and think, how does that give me joy? But Jesus is telling us, this is going to give you joy in your life. This is going to bring you joy. So let's look at it. How do we find joy? Well, the first thing he said was abide in God. Abide in God. What does that mean? It means that we try to stay close to him. We try to keep him in our life as much as we can. We're trying to add as much of God into our life as we can. We're trying to seek out ways to put God into our life, to stay right next to him. We are trying to spend time with him, trying to get to know him, trying to develop that relationship so that we can get closer to him. We're doing everything we can to try to put more God into our life. We're spending time talking to him. We're spending time in prayer with him. We're spending time in his word. We're spending time learning about his word, whether you're doing that on your own or you're coming here to church or you're listening to something on YouTube or a podcast or something. You're listening to things that are glorifying God and putting that in your life. Okay? You're trying to get as much of God as you can. That is what abiding in God means. It's trying to stay as close to him as you can. So you're always right there next to him. That you don't have to go very far to find him when you need him. When there's difficulties and there's problems that come up, you don't have to worry about where am I going to find God? You don't have to, because he's right here next to you. You know where he's at. He's in your life. He's a part of your life. Think of your closest friends, the people that you spend a lot of time with, the people that you enjoy talking to, the people who you turn to when you have a problem. How did they get that way in your life? How did that relationship develop in your life? You poured into it, didn't you? They poured into you. You spent time with them. You got to know them. You talked to them. You learned about each other. And that's what we have to do with God as well. If we're going to have that relationship with God, if we're going to abide in him, we have to spend time with him. And when you spend time with him in all those ways we just talked about, by trying to get to know him more. And now, it's a little bit different because we're not talking to him face-to-face like we talk face-to-face with someone else. But our prayer time, that is going right to God. That's our time that we can go right to him. And sometimes I think it's easy to forget because we've lived in a time where we've able to have that direct relationship with God. But before Jesus came and died on the cross, people were not able to go directly to God like that, like we can now. You think back in the Old Testament, and they have the temple, and they had that spot, the Holy of Holies, where the priest could go in, and only the priest could go in, and only certain times, and only under certain restrictions. And that was where they could go to make intercession with God, that they could go to talk to God. And then when Jesus died on the cross, think back of what the story tells us. There's that big, thick curtain that separated the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple. And when Jesus died on the cross, remember what the Bible says happened? That curtain was torn in half. And you know what that's supposed to tell you? That you can come right to God now. That you didn't have to go through that priest that you had to before. That you didn't have to go only certain times a year. That we can go directly to him at any time. Anytime we need him. That he can be right there with you. And I think it's easy for us to forget that because, like I said, that we've grown up. We've all lived our whole life in that time where if you have a relationship with God, you can go directly to him. And we don't think about that before Jesus, that wasn't possible. And think about how amazing it is that we can go directly to the God of the universe that created everything, that created us. All-powerful God of the universe. We have direct access to him. And so we need to be abiding in Jesus, to getting close to him as we can and staying close to him. That we aren't just getting right next to him. Because we all, probably this week, you all probably went and visited someone, didn't you? Or maybe someone came to visit you. And even, maybe even you had some people who came from out of town and stayed at your house for a few nights. My mom and my stepdad came, they were at our house for a couple nights this week. But they didn't stay. They went back home. You went to someone's house this week for Christmas or something. And you didn't stay there, did you? You were there, you visited, you went back home. Someone came to your house, same thing. They came over, they visited, they went back home. It was good to see them. You got to spend time with them. They may be people that you love and care about, that you're close to. But they came for a time and then they left. That's not abiding. What's abiding? Abiding is coming, and we're setting down roots here. And so we're not just going to God every now and then, coming to him on Sundays and Wednesdays and, maybe whenever else we have time to read something during the week. That it says that you're coming and you're setting down roots next to God. You are abiding with him and staying with him. We also read in there that talks about that we need to allow God to guide and correct us. We're talking about that example of pruning. And any of you that have ever done any kind of gardening or flowering or anything like that, you have to prune stuff sometimes, don't you? You have to take off what's dead or dying so that the plant can grow. Because that stuff that's dying or that's already dead, it's stealing resources away from the plant, isn't it? And when we can get rid of that, then all the resources can go to the part that's thriving instead. And so he gives us this example of pruning here, that God sometimes has to prune us. God sometimes has to take those things in us that aren't doing well, that are trying to pull the good away from us, that are trying to pull those resources. And we need to get rid of those things so that instead we can focus more on God and continue to grow in him. If you have some kind of fruit tree or vegetables or something you're growing, like we have an example here, it's talking about grapes. Another reason why you prune is so that you can bring more of your harvest, whatever it is. It brings more fruit as we prune. We get rid of the bad so that more resources can go to that fruit you're trying to get. And then you get better fruit and you get more fruit. And in our life, we allow God to correct us and to get rid of that stuff that's pulling us away. Then that allows the fruit of our relationship with God to grow and to thrive. And we can produce more and more. The more that we let God prune away the stuff in our life that he doesn't want in there, the closer we get to him. And the more we can do for him. That dead stuff in our life, that sin in our life, the stuff that God is trying to get us to get rid of, It just keeps us away from God. It pulls us away. And it keeps us from getting closer to him. It gets in the way in between us. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We need to be able to get rid of that stuff, move it out, so that we can focus more on God. We were talking about a minute ago, abiding in him. How do we get closer to him? We have to get rid of that other stuff that's in the way in between us. You can't get close to someone when there's something in the way, can you? You can try, but there's always going to be something in the way. One of you could stand outside the wall of the auditorium there, and I could stand on the inside of the auditorium here. And we can go and stand right next to the wall, and yeah, I guess we're kind of close, but there's still a wall in between us, isn't there? And so no matter what we do, that wall is going to be there, unless we break through it. And that sin that we allow into our life, that we don't want to get rid of, that acts as that wall in between us and God. The only way we're going to get through and get next to God is to break through that wall and allow God to take it away. Allow God to get it out of our life. Then he told us that we need to continue in loving obedience to him. That we are choosing to obey and stay close to God, not because we're obligated to. Now, we've all had times that we've had to do something because we're kind of obligated to do it, haven't we? And how excited do you feel when you're doing that thing that you're obligated to do? You don't really want to do it, but it's something you just have to do. And you kind of grit your teeth and you get through it. And when you're done, you're like, I'm glad that's over with. And hopefully I don't have to do it again. We have those times, don't we? And so what Jesus is saying here is that we're not obeying God because we're obligated to, because we're being forced to, that we're choosing to do it out of our love for him. That when we choose to obey him out of our love for him, that leads to joy. That we are obeying him because we love him and we want to have that relationship with him that we were just talking about. That we want to abide with him. That we want him to be in our life. There are people that are in your life that sometimes, as we said, you have a relationship with them. And sometimes maybe you wish you didn't have to spend as much time with them, but, again, you kind of have to. But we're not having that relationship with God because we have to, but because we want to. And we're obeying him and following him and letting him guide us because we want to have the relationship with him, because we want to be close to him and have him be close to us. And now Jesus said all this stuff, and he said, now, because if you do all those things, you can have joy in your life. If you stay close to God and bring him into your life and make him a part of your life, if you let God cut out the bad so that you can grow and thrive, and says you follow God lovingly, says all those things bring about joy into your life. And like I said, that might be things we don't really think about, how that can bring joy. But as the closer we are to God, what this boils down to is the closer we are to God, the more we have him in our life, the more joy we're going to find. And it might seem hard to understand that, and it might seem like that doesn't make sense, but that's really what this boils down to. Jesus says, the more you get close to God, the more time you spend with him, the more of him you get into your life, the more joy you're going to find. But there are things that chip away at our joy too. Call them joy destroyers. The things that get in the way, the things that block the joy. First, we mentioned, we were going to talk about this in a minute. The lingering sin in our life is a barrier between us and God. We just said that Jesus is telling us how joy comes from having a relationship with God and getting close to him. And this lingering sin, it is that wall that we were just talking about in between us and God. And all of us have it. I have it as much as all of you do. We have those things in our life that we don't really want to give up, that we're holding on to, and we know we shouldn't, but we don't want to give it up. And those things get in the way between us and God. And those things block our relationship. Makes things fuzzy sometimes. Makes things hard to hear from God. And look, Satan tries to tell us that we're the only ones struggling with it. And I'm trying to tell you here that myself and every single person in this room has those struggles. Okay, so if you're struggling with that, whatever it is you're struggling with, you are not alone. You are not the only one. Satan will tell you that. Satan will try to isolate you, and he will try to tell you, you're the only one struggling with this, and you're not. We are all struggling with something. Now, that doesn't mean it's okay. That doesn't mean that, well, we can say, well, everyone else does it, so I guess I'll just let it linger here too. Because, as you said, it blocks us and God and gets in the way. And it destroys our joy, and it erodes at our joy. In Psalm 32, we're not going to read the whole psalm, but it's a good psalm you can go to if you want to look at it. It's not real long. And David is writing, and he writes about how sin pulls us down and weighs us down. In verse 1, he says, "Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile." Now listen what he says about when he has a sin. "When I kept silence, my bones waxed old through my roaring all the day long. For day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. My moisture is turned into the drought of summer. Selah. I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord. And thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. Selah." That David paints us a picture there of our bones aching, even from the weight of the sin pulling down on us. That sin that we're trying to carry around, that we don't want to give up on, that we're trying to hold on to because we're not ready to say goodbye to it. It is a weight on our shoulders pushing down on us. So much so, like David is saying, that our bones ache from all that weight that we're trying to carry. And you know what God says? You know, God is saying he's trying to get rid of that bad stuff, prune us, like we just talked about in John 15. And what he's really saying is, I'll come and I'll take that weight off your shoulders. You don't have to carry it anymore. But yet we still say, no, I'm going to carry it. I want that weight pulling down on me. I'm going to keep it here because I like it. And at the end of the chapter, David writes this: "Many sorrows shall be to the wicked, but he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about. Be glad in the Lord and rejoice, ye righteous, and shout for joy, all ye that are upright in heart." David is saying, you can shout for joy when you get that sin off of you, because it's not pulling you down anymore. And it's not weighing you down, and it's not holding you back. And because we've gotten that off of us, we can rejoice. We can have joy because of it. When David confesses that sin and he repents from it and turns away, that's what repenting means, to turn the other way and go. He says, I'm able to find joy again once I've gotten that sin off of me. And so that lingering sin that we have, it pulls us down and weighs us down and holds us back and gets in the way of us and God. Unrealistic expectations can destroy our joy as well. Listen to this quote I've heard before, and I had written it down and go back to it. "God seems to let us down the most whenever we have created false expectations based on things that he's never told us." So think about that. God lets us down the most whenever we have created false expectations based on things that he's never told us. So when we feel like God is letting us down, what that's saying is we need to stop and think about, is he really letting us down? Or are we expecting things that he's never told us? Because sometimes we decide in our minds, God needs to do this for me. Or this is what God wants from me. And that's not something God's ever told you before. And so all of a sudden we start thinking, well, God's not listening to me. God doesn't care about me. God is letting me down. All because we're expecting things from him that he's never said he's going to do. Or he's never said that he wants from us. You know, in the New Testament, we talk about the Pharisees a lot, and we see them, and we always look down on them. But that's what they're doing. They're creating these extra expectations that God never asked for. And we often do that ourselves. We create extra expectations from God that He's never told us He needs or He wants. And so it's not that God is letting us down, it's that we're creating false expectations. And we're creating expectations that are unrealistic. We put things in our life that we need to live up to, and they never come from God. So why are we getting mad at God when we're not living up to the things that we've put in our life? We should be getting mad at ourselves. We're the ones who put those expectations there, not God. And so we need to, as we just were talking about, get close to God, learn how to stay close to Him, how to abide in Him, learn how to listen to Him in our life so that we can have the right expectations. Instead of putting our own expectations or false expectations in there where we are going to now feel let down, and that's going to chip away at our joy. So the closer we are getting to God, the more we can learn what His expectations are, not our own. And that's how we can find joy there. But we also have unrealistic expectations from other people around us too, don't we? That chip away at our joy. We see what other people have and start thinking that that's something that we need to have. Oh, they have this. Look how awesome their life is. Look how great they're doing. I need to be doing the same thing. If I'm not living up to what they're showing me, then I'm doing something wrong. And I need to live up to what I see from these other people, whoever those other people are. Your family, your friends, your neighbors, other people at your job, whatever. Other people at church, even. You see what they're doing, and you think, I need to match that. That's what's right. That is what God is calling me to do. But God sometimes calls us all to do something different. God doesn't call all of us to the same thing. God doesn't call all of us to reach the same people. God doesn't call all of us to read our Bible the same way, to pray the same way, to do any of that. God reaches out to each one of us uniquely. So as we're looking at other people, even when we're looking at the way other people serve God, we can't compare ourselves to them. We need to look at what God is calling us to do. Because God doesn't call all of us to do the same thing. Maybe someone says that they are able to read 2 or 3 chapters a day in their Bible. And you're thinking, well, I can only get through 2 or 3 verses. What am I doing wrong? There's nothing you're doing wrong. As long as you're spending time with God, and if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. If that's what God is calling you to do, do it. If God is calling you to read 1 verse a day, great, do it. Start from there. God might call you to do more later. But don't compare yourself to the other people around you, to the way that they are serving the Lord, to the way that they live their lives, to the cars they drive, to the vacations they go on, to the way they dress, to any of that. Because when we have those unrealistic expectations from what we see other people doing, and we're thinking that's what we have to live up to, that starts to tear away our joy. Because we can't live up to it. Because that's them. We need to live up to what God has called us to do, what God has placed into our life. But one more, we also create expectations for other people in our life. And then we get mad and upset when those people don't live up to the expectations that we've made. And often we've never communicated to them either. Because we in our heads make up expectations we have for the other people in our life, but then don't communicate those to people or expect it from them when it's unrealistic. And then we get mad and upset that those other people in our life, usually the closest people in our life, don't live up to what we think they should be doing. Now, if there's people in your life, especially close people in your life, your spouse or just close friends, and you have things going on, first, we should be communicating with each other and talk with each other about it, especially if it's your spouse. And you're struggling because there's things that you're expecting from your spouse and they're not living up to it, but you never told them about it. Maybe that's a conversation you guys should have. But we also need to realize that sometimes we have to change our expectations too. Instead of holding people to these things that we think they should be doing and getting mad when they don't live up to it, we might need to change. We might need to communicate. We might need to do those kinds of things. Because when we're holding those people around us to these expectations and there's no way they're going to live up to it, it just continues to tear us down and take that joy out of our life. And then these expectations that we have on people, what do they lead to? The last thing we have up there, conflict. The conflicts that we have in our life tear away at joy. The problems we have with others, they keep us from finding that joy. There's often this conflict, if we don't get rid of it, if we don't get it out of our life, what does it turn into? Anger and bitterness. And those are the opposite of joy in every way, aren't they? And if we don't get this conflict right, and we don't get it solved, and we don't get it taken care of, and get the relationships mended, then that anger and bitterness is going to grow in us. Grow and continue to get in between us and God, as we talked about. Continue to get between us and the other people around us. And it's going to keep growing and overtake the joy. And all of a sudden, the anger and the bitterness has grown greater than the joy in our lives. And is overtaking that joy and overshadowing it. And now we can't find the joy anymore because we have so much anger in our hearts. And probably all of you can think of people you've come across, whether it's someone you know or someone you work with or just someone you passed by, or just driving down the road and the way people treat you sometimes, right? You see these people who have so much anger that's overtaken them. And they can't find the joy anymore because they didn't get rid of it and they allowed it to grow and grow in their hearts and in their life. So we need to get rid of all these things that destroy our joy. Try to get them out of our life. Try to stay close to God so that we can continue to find joy and find joy every day in our life. So how do we find joy every day? How do we continue moving forward each day and find joy? Because it's something we have to do every single day. Because every day, unfortunately, we live in a sin-cursed world, don't we? And every day, that sin is trying to push us back down and trying to push us away and trying to pull us down. And so every day, we need to be able to get up and we need to be able to choose to have joy in our life. So how can we do that? Think back to what we talked about last week, putting our hope in God. And what did we say hope was? It was a confident expectation that carries no doubt. That we're not just hoping God's going to be there, but we can trust and know that He's going to be there. And know that He is going to be helping us. He's not going to leave us alone. That He's going to come through for us, no matter what we do. So that even when we come up against the difficulties that we have in life and the trials that we have in life and the problems that we're going to have, we can know that we're going to have God there with us, that we have been abiding in Him, as we talked about, that we've kept Him close, that we've put down our roots right next to His, and so that when those difficulties come, all we have to do is just reach right next to it and say, God, I need you, and we know that He's going to carry us through. And that's how we find joy in those difficulties. That's why we can rejoice. And that's what's going to stand out about us to people who don't know God. Because we can know that He's going to get us through it. Again, we've said it over and over before. Doesn't mean that nothing bad is going to happen or that you're never going to struggle. We still will. But we can know that God is there to help us bring us through it. And He's going to take the worst of it for us and bring us through the other side better off. And so that's why we can have joy. And that's what we can look for every day when we're getting up and we're facing down the difficulties of that day, to say, I don't have to do this alone. That I have God who created it all powerful, who's on my side and is going to carry me through this day. So what do I have to worry about anymore? I can have joy, right? I can rejoice and be thankful that He's there. Because I know that He's going to bring me through it. He's done it before and I know that He can do it again. We need to seek contentment in our life. Instead of all those unrealistic expectations that we just talked about, we need to seek contentment. In Philippians 4:11 through 13, Paul says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." He says that I can be content no matter where I am or no matter what I'm going through. Why? Because he's got God there with him. God is the one who gives him the strength to get through all those situations. That he doesn't have to find that strength by himself, or he doesn't have to go through it alone. And if you look at Paul's life and look at the kinds of things that he went through and the struggles that he went through, he had a pretty difficult life. He was thrown in prison, he was beaten, he was stoned, he was kicked out of cities, he was shipwrecked, he had all kinds of stuff that was going on. And through all of that, he says, it's okay. No matter what it is, it's okay. Because I have God who's going to get me through it. And God is going to give me all I need to get it through it. So again, why can we find joy in those struggles? Because we can be content knowing that God is going to give us what we need and God is going to get us through it. Now, it's not always what God is going to give us what we want, right? Let's make sure we notice that. What did we say? God is going to give us what we need to get through it. And sometimes what we need to get through it is a little bit different than what we think we need to get through it. Does that make sense? We can do a lot more than we think we can sometimes. And sometimes God is going to ask us to do it. Sometimes God is going to ask us to do things and we're not sure that we can, but he's saying, yeah, you need to trust me and I'll carry you through it and I'll get you through it and I'll give you the things that you need and I'll give you the strength that you need. And this last thing that we wrote up there, and is probably one of the hardest ones for us to do, is to surrender that stress and that fear and that anxiety that we have, and to surrender those to God and say, God, I can't solve it and I need you to do it. And I know this is hard to do for everyone. So I'm not up here trying to tell you this is some easy thing to do and it's going to be no sweat off your brow to just say, yeah, God, okay, you take it. This is hard to do. To take those things that are really pulling us down, that are really weighing down on us, the fears that we have, the worries that we have, and the stress that we have, to place those things at God and say, okay, God, I can't deal with this and I don't know how to fix it, so I'm going to have to give it to you. But when we're able to do that, as we just were looking at, God is there to bring us through it, isn't he? God gives us the things that we need. And we can look at our past experiences that we said, the way he's come through for us in the past, and say, all right, God, I'm worried about this. I'm afraid. I'm stressed out. I'm pretty anxious. I don't know what to do. But you've taken care of me in the past. So I'm going to trust that you can do it again. And so when we take those things off us, remember, think back to what David said about that sin weighing down on us. These fears and worries and stresses, they weigh down on us too, don't they? And they do work the same way and make our bones yell out in pain from that stress that's bearing down on us. But God is coming to us and saying, I want to take those off of you. I want to carry them for you. I want to help you. And I know it's not easy. It is not easy to do that. It's not easy for any of us to say, I can't do it, is it? Because we all want to think that we can do it ourselves. And we all want to be able to do it. And we all want to say, no, this is mine and I need to take care of it. But God is coming to you and God is saying, it doesn't have to be yours. He's telling you that he'll take it. In 1 Peter 5:7, it says to cast our cares upon God because he cares for us. God is saying, I love you, I care for you, I want to have a relationship with you, and I want to help you. And if you can take those cares and those worries and those fears and you give them to me, he says, I'll carry them for you so you don't have to anymore. And I've said it a million times already, I know that's hard to do, But God is willing to do it. He's saying, I'm willing to carry them for you. I'm willing to take them off your shoulders so they're not weighing you down anymore. The thing is, we have to let him do it. We have to say, okay, God, I'm going to surrender them to you. I'm going to put them at your feet. Because I've tried and I can't do it, and I need you to help me do it. When we can do that, he says, I'll be there to do it. I'll be there to help you. But God's not a genie who we can just rub the lamp and grant us 3 wishes. We have to continue staying close to him. We have to continue in that relationship. We have to continue developing it, trying to get closer to him so that we can even find him when we have those problems. Because sometimes what we do is we've put all that other stuff in between us, that stuff that destroys our joy that we talked about, the conflict and the expectations and the sin that we haven't gotten rid of, and all that builds up in between us and God. And so that when we have the fears and the worries and the stresses and we need to get rid of it, and we say, I want to give it to God, we can't even find God because we've let all this other stuff stay in between us. And then that goes back to those unrealistic expectations we talked about, because then we say, well, where's God? Why isn't he helping me out? Why won't he take care of these things for me? Well, because we don't even know where he's at. Because we've let a bunch of stuff get in the way. We've wandered away. God stays in the same place. We're the ones who wander away. And then we get mad that he's not there when we've left him. So the only way to do this is to continue abiding in him, as we talked about at the beginning, to continue staying close to him. So that when you have these problems and you're ready to get rid of them and you're ready to surrender them to God, that you know where to find God, that you know he's right next to you, and you can turn to him and say, God, I need you to take these off of me. That we don't have that sin there that's in the way between us and him. We're working on getting rid of it. We're letting God prune it out of our life. And when we do those things, when we continue to stay close to him, when we let him get the stuff out of our life that's separating us, when we turn to him and allow him to carry our burdens for us, and we've gotten rid of all the anger, we've gotten rid of the bitterness, we've gotten rid of the unrealistic expectations, we're getting rid of the sin as best as we can, we're taking that stress and that anxiety and we're putting it at God's feet, then what's left? The joy, isn't it? We've gotten rid of all the rest. So that's why we have joy. We can have joy as Christians. That's why Jesus said in John 15, you do all these things, you can find joy. Because, you know what? We've stripped away the rest of it. We've allowed God to take it off our hands. We've allowed God to carry it for us. And all those other things in the world that is pulling us down are gone, and we're left with joy. And that's what God wants to do for us, because he cares for us, he loves us, and he wants us to have joy. And this is, as we said, this is one so important to our Christian life, because that seems so odd and unusual to someone that doesn't have God, that even though you're going through these struggles, you can still be joyful, and you still seem to be doing okay, and you are saying, hey, it's okay, I got God on my side. And this is a way that we can show God in our life, and one of the biggest ways that we can be an example to him is to have that joy, overflowing joy, as Jesus called it. That you can be full of joy in all that you're doing. But we got to start with God, get close to him. God, we come to you again. As we close, we just thankful for the things you do for us, that you want us to have this joy, that you're willing to take all these other things away from us so that we can find it. That's for each one of us, that we would be looking at our life and trying to figure out what things we're allowing in our life, in the way, in between us and you, that we can try to strip away, the burdens that we can place at your feet to carry for us, that we can have the joy that you give us. Just thankful for the ways that you love us, God. Praise things in your name. Amen. So let's stand together and we'll sing this song.